Hi ladies, it's a Tiny Bananas Day again. I wore my Tiny Banana socks that you gave me, Adria, so it's official. I had something else planned out to talk about today, but this morning on my run, I was doing some thinking, and there's something else I want to talk to you guys to talk about instead. I've written a lot of poetry. You guys have been in classes with me. It's just easier, I guess, with the way my life has been so far. It's just been, I could sit down and, kind of work through the process right then. Even if, it took a lot of time or revision, I could look at the whole thing at the same time and sort of get a feel for what it wanted to be. And I've written some prose for different classes, and I liked it. But one thing that's been striking me lately, especially with working at the press, is how, I read prose there, and I really envy it. I really envy this big project in hard-hammered sentences and getting to work at the paragraph level and the chapter level and think about those kinds of things. They're questions that you just don't get to ask with poetry. And I think, too, thinking more about prose is a function of being out of school and actually getting to read for the first time in a long time for pleasure and read things kind of in one go. I read this book recently called Gifts of the Crow, and it's actually written by a UW professor, and it's about how smart crows are and all the ways in which their consciousness and language in ways that we might think of. And it was really interesting, and in some ways very good. And in other ways, I was like, I'm not into this writing. This needs work. And I was thinking about writers who I admire, like Mary Roach, like John Ronson, writers who do nonfiction and do it really well. And this is partly a function of me reading, can't say his name, Ta-Nehisi Coates. I heard it said Ta-Nehisi Coates on a show, and then everyone who I've talked, and I was so happy and relieved to hear his name said, and to think I knew how to say it, and then everyone who I've talked to since has said it differently, and so I'm shaken. I'm reading Between the World and Me, his new book, for a book club, and it's amazing. I'm having moments on the bus, it's incredible. The things he's bringing up, the questions of race and how to live in a black body, and talking to his son about it, and talking about how things were when he was growing up versus how his son, the world his son is in with Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown. So some things different, but then other things still very dangerous, very much present. I digress. You need to read it. It's excellent. Minor, really, point in the book is Coates talking about his role as a journalist, and just as a kid, his mom sitting him down and making him write through things. And so really early on getting to think about writing as thinking. And then later on being in college and doing all this reading and feeling like he was in some ways kind of done with college. He went to Howard, but I think he dropped out just because he was starting to write. He was starting to do journalism and felt like between reading and the people he was meeting, he kind of had he was good to go. He kind of had a way to keep learning from there. And he was talking about learning about journalism as an extension of that, thinking through writing and being able to oh, that store is closed, what happened there, and being able to call someone up and ask and then write about it. Just kind of wondering, oh, whatever happened to so-and-so, and then asking about it and writing about it. And I've been thinking maybe I want to do that. I'm not sure that I have quite the kind of tenacity and in-your-faceness to be a journalist. I mean, I know some people who write for publications, and they're fantastic. My friend Jacob's boyfriend writes for Seattle Weekly, and he's off on his bicycle finding sources and digging stuff up, and he's incredible. I'm not sure I'm up to that. I'm not sure if journalism is my thing, but I think nonfiction is something I'm going to try and make it a point to get into. It's going on my to-do list of things to think about. I had this paper I wrote about the the waterfront redevelopment project in Seattle. I wrote it in spring, so I'm thinking that's maybe something I'm going to clean up and make more accessible in like a non-scholarly venue, and see if I can like make that something that people would want to read. I've had a couple of classes where we've read scientific literature, and then it's been our project to make it accessible to a general audience and to connect it to something, connect it to real world stakes, say why it's important. And that's something I might try and do, dig through science journals, find new papers, and kind of riff on them. Part of me thinks like you're just synthesizing things other people have already written, except that the thing is a lot of those papers, the writing up is part of it and it's for a certain audience, and so there really is a value, I think, in opening that up to other people who aren't in that little enclave. So that's another thing I might try and do. And who knows, maybe I'll be like you, Gwendolyn. Maybe I'll see if I can tackle screenwriting, or like both of you have worked on novels, and I've admired you so much, and like you're just like tackling such big projects and building these big extended worlds and following through with this story. And I've for the past few years watched you guys and been amazed, and like done the magic spreadsheet and seeing people plugging away day after day on the same project and that. And I think it's time. I think I'm gonna start plugging away at stuff like that. I'm still gonna write poetry probably, because I have this thing going with Dandy and Jack where we all have a Google folder together and we're all keeping each other accountable, writing every day. But whole new world, which brings to mind the question, if it's not obnoxious, you don't have to answer, because I know this is a very stressful question, but what are you writing? Hugo House is having a 30-30 challenge, writing for 30 minutes for 30 days, and I think to some extent we probably easily could beat that in other ways. That might be a fun thing to try together. So I don't know if you guys would be interested, but in the spirit of me and Dandy and Jack's poetry thing, and me hopefully wanting to get more in your guys' end of things, let me know if you want to get something together as far as like group commitment. That's on my mind. Can't wait to hear from you guys next week.